Second day back, I'm heading into the city for professional development. Yesterday was a massive admin day. My wife's just dropped me off at the train station so I can catch the train into the city. Of course, it's a lot easier and a lot less stressful. So, train's due in about a little under 10 minutes. Mountain platforms, we usually only have a guard on in the morning commute, and you notice with the toilet sign they only have the toilets open in the morning. Because during the day, trains usually only come through about every hour. I like how this station's basically set up for the commuter with the little library, the waiting rooms. Like that's an old mountains platform, and it's about an hour and a half, I think. A bit over an hour and a half. Yeah, a bit over an hour and a half into the city from here. And you can obviously hear the highway, so right next to it.
Circle services, proceed to platform number 17. For all other services, please check the indicator boards. Also customers, please take all your personal belongings with you. Thank you for travelling New South Wales Train.
Some of the PE staff at the school. During the break, one of the young blokes was doing building a deck at his house, and he DM'd me on Instagram saying, I've got some leftover merbau, would you like it? And I said, and he sort of showed me, and I said, yeah, sure, just drop it into the school, throw it in the storeroom, and I'll sort it out. And there's all those long bits, and then all of this stuff. I mean, some of the really short stuff in here, I don't know what I'll do, but these things, that's a good piece of merbau, nice piece of hardwood. You could get a jewellery box out of that piece, something. So I've just got to stack it in this section in some way. This is a lot of my reclaiming spot. Figure I'll show you this while I'm here in this storeroom. This is my main timber area. That's a 3 metre deep rack, goes right up to the ceiling. You see a lot of the odd bod reclaim stuff. I'd usually have set sizes that you just buy from a timber yard in this bit here, like the 70 by 70 for turning, and that's just pine. And I've got some maple down towards the front of the rack where there's doors on the outside of the building. But then I remember showing this stuff in another video, which was when we reclaimed all the Tassie oak from some of the cabinetry and all this stuff as well. Some lining boards, some of the construction timber. But when you get to the bottom of the rack, it's all mixed reclaimed stuff. There's a lot of Queensland maple, Moranti is what it's sold as now. And then up in this rack, all sorts of random stuff. This stuff here, this is a lot of Western red cedar, and this is where one of the jewellery boxes I made was out of this stuff. There was a window installer who lived locally in the area, and he contacted me, and this is years ago, and he said, I've got a lot of offcuts of Western red cedar. Do you think you'd like to use them? And I said, sure, and he just turned up with this trailer load of the stuff. So I've got stacks of it, and it's all that sort of a length. So that's good for small projects, and it's a nice light timber to use. All of this Sydney blue gum, these were offcuts from when the gym floor got replaced a few years back now. So there's that. We've actually started getting in through that stuff. Some more pieces like these ones here, the window ledges offcuts. Now that's some more western red cedar, but there was actually some jarrah as well. So got lucky in a sense there. I've got a lot of pine, a lot of this pine and Meranti here. This is all the stuff that when we get timber delivered, they have all that sort of stuff strapped at the bottom, like on the pallet. So they'll have the timber resting on that and they'll strap it. These things here and sort of stacked there behind that board. My construction classes, when they go out to workplace, when I go out and visit some and get in touch with the builders and have a chat with the builders, and one guy, he rang me sort of a week after I'd visited, and he was pulling out some cedar windows and sliding doors from a house, replacing them with aluminium windows and doors. And he said to me, "Do you want them?" And I was on the way to work and my van was running at the time, and I said sure. And I just pulled up, and so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 8-foot tall cedar windows and doors. Just need to pull them apart, put the glass into the other storeroom where I've got glass reclaimed. That'll be great. There was also some other bits from like the trim that he gave me, like these tall pieces here. I've got a lot of door trim stuff. The maple up there, or Meranti. Keep calling it maple because that's what we called it when I was at school, and it's since been found out it's actually not Queensland maple, it's now called Meranti. Anyway, here's my plywood rack. Some of the bought stuff and a lot of the reclaimed stuff I get from places. Old doors that have been pulled out of sections of the building. This stuff here, you know, blackboards, parts of cabinetry. This is what's left of some cedar weatherboards that I picked up from where I was living before. There was a guy I knew who was renovating his house, and he was pulling all of these off his old house. And one of the sheds that we built with a class back in 2009, we used a lot of that to basically line the outside or wrap the outside of that shed. They're just sort of the leftover bits. Yeah, I've got no shortage of reclaimed material. And this is just one of the storerooms. I'll show you the shed storeroom. So this is inside the shed that's at the back of the school, where you saw that the big mesh fence that I put across the roller door on the outside. A few years back, I got some students to build this rack. This shed is, I think it's around about 5 metres long, and there used to be an old shed here that got eaten out by termites, so now this one's steel framed. But this was the rack I had in there that the kids had built, that was part of, it was attached to the edge of that shed. So this one now has the timber rack freestanding, so that we could go straight out the door when we get timber arrive. Up at the back sections where I've got some pallets stored, some flat pallets and some other things like that. Here's another thing that I like my PE stuff for. Head teacher of PE messaged me about some pine that he had. Now again, this is some nice thick pine, 2x6 tongue and groove. He said it was from a piece of furniture that they were pulling apart. He said, "Do you want it?" And I wasn't really, I thought it was thinner stuff when he told me about it. But when I came in and he'd left it just next to the shed for me, but they're all 3-foot lengths. Some nice pine, it's all square. It's not bowed or twisted or anything like that, so we'll find a use for that. Hardwood that I've pulled out of houses. Well, I haven't pulled out, some builders have pulled out and they offered it to me because they were in my street. Down here, some floorboards from the old floorboards in the gym. That when they pulled out the original floor to replace it. I grabbed a lot of it, you know, out of the dumpster because they were just chucking it, including the joist from the very bottom. You can see these pieces down the bottom, these square ones. That's the stuff I use to make my gate. Giant pieces that have been pulled out around the school. They're hardwood and as heavy as. Some stair banisters from a house. An ex-colleague who was redoing his floor and he had hardwood flooring, all offcuts because it was parquetry flooring. Science drawers, you've seen my science drawers everywhere. So I got loads of that stuff. I reclaim a lot and the kids learn a lot about being environmental and not having to buy brand new stuff all the time. That's today's update. Today was my first lesson for the term with Year 8, doing metal. This is the metal workshop, the junior one. It's one of the biggest workshops that we've got for the juniors because there used to be 2 workshops here. Many years ago, they turned this into one big room and next door got turned into a smaller theory room. So I think the wall was more somewhere around here. This room, the machines in this room don't usually get used because of the type of projects. These are usually small hand tool projects. We do have some of the metal craft scrolling things for doing scroll work quite easily, not having to forge because you're not allowed to do forging. So we've got some simple folders, shears and machinery for doing metal rivets that aren't pot rivets. Today's lesson, basically getting the kids in the idea of safety into their head, the fact that metal rooms can be quite dirty even though we're not doing a lot, and the fact that they've got to look out for metal shavings because it's very different to dust. So we did a little bit of safety just on the workshop, some on the bench drill that we've got over there. The machinery we got is nice, big, heavy-duty machinery. I mean, it is a school, kind of meant to be an industrial setting. So this is our drill press, big, heavy base down the bottom. We do have a Hercus mill that when I started at this school 15, 16 years ago, this was not operational. And we ended up finding a lot of the parts in one of the storerooms. But so the room's got a large pan brake, which I purchased 12 years ago, 13 years ago, a small magna bender, a large super shear for cutting sheet metal with the foot pedals for actuating the blade. These cages around them got mandated about 20 years ago in schools after a student crawled behind one and got hit as the blade came down. Smaller pan brake, one anvil in the room for hitting things on, but you basically see that the workshop's set out with a number of vices on every table. Down the front there are 4 Hercus lathes. They have not been used in a long time because we haven't had a junior metal class for... When I say junior metal class, I mean like a stage 5 metals where they really get into the idea of metalwork rather than just STEM type metal. So doing machining and welding and those sort of things, heat treating. Those 4 lathes, which yes, haven't been used because we do have the trade school now with the bigger lathes, but I really like using these old ones and I'd like to get into using them again. One grinder with a sharpening wheel and a buffing wheel, and we've got a cold saw down there next to the cabinets. A couple of bench shears. Today, after we did that basic safety, we just got a piece of aluminium so they could do dog tags. Got them to start doing just a little bit of filing, get the sharp edges off it. And after we do those, I think I'm going to get them to do the same thing with mild steel so they can see the difference between aluminium and steel, because they're filing the aluminium really easily. It'll be really nice and it'll polish really easily, and I'd like to get them to see how well metal can be worked as well, but that it's a lot harder to do, and hopefully they'll appreciate the work that they do. It's a smaller group generally because a lot of the kids don't attend, and it's a group of boys mainly. There are some girls, but they do have very challenging behaviours. And so trying to keep an eye on them in a workshop like this could be awkward. For the short prac we did today, they were quite well behaved, and I think it was because it was their very first time in a metal room. Keep you posted. I don't have them again until next Monday, and we'll see how we go. So it's Friday Arvo. Day's done, pretty much. I did want to get into this workshop at one point to try and set it up, because I've got Year 8 first period on Monday, but that never happened. It was reporting time, Year 11 reports, and I've got to check my whole faculty's reports, so that was fairly full on. And we've also got a vet audit for our vocational courses, desk audit next week, so we're getting all that sort of paperwork finalised. Just before finishing up for the day, I wanted to come down and just have a look and check out the old lathes, because I know they haven't been used in a long time, and I've got something that I want to try on them. Down in the trade school we've got some lathes with digital readouts, much newer. When I say much newer, they're about 10 years old. Haven't used them much, except for one little job I did a couple of years back, and stuff for TAFE. But the Hercuses here I've used a lot. Back when I was at school, my first school that I taught at, we had the same lathes, and then when we came here we had these. And I just decided, like, I know they haven't been used in a long time. We haven't had metal running as junior class for quite a while. So I wanted to come down and just check them out. Got all my power turned on. School lathes tend to have these little lockout switches as well, so you've got to have a key to switch them on there. So there's switch on the wall, switch to turn it on, and you can see the power's on here. We've also just had, and I think I showed these last year, earlier in the year, these emergency lockout, and you've got to make sure they're unlocked. And this room's a big room, so it's got 3, so I went around and checked that they're all unlocked, made sure the power's on. And this was the one that I wanted to try out first, probably because it's the cleanest looking, and there's nothing all over it. I've turned it all on, and nothing's working. I went and checked the power boards. There is one set of circuits that's tripped, and it says it's for a 3-phase plug. It could be this one. This one here, I switched it on, and success on that. That one's running at about 620. This one should be set up to run at about 890. This one set to run much slower. Oh, that's right, there's 2 sets of belts. That one's set to 270. So there's 2 sets of belts. That one's set to 390. Had that one right, that was 890. But that's not running. And this one is 620. So that's why that one sounds faster. I said there's a little project that I want to try. I've got to see if I've got a boring bar somewhere. We do have a mixture of carbide tool and high-speed steel tool posts. The last couple of staff I've had were getting into using the carbide tools a lot more. I'm a little bit more familiar with using high-speed steel, so I've got these little high-speed steel tool posts. But when I look at the cutters, most of them have been chewed or chipped, so they'd need to be resharpened anyway. I'm going to have a check in the storeroom next week. Even though we do have the big flash new trade school, I would like to see these used, even if it's just by me. The industrial arts are becoming such a dying subject in some areas. And I'm glad that it's still a viable subject here. That being said, metalwork is not one of them. The kids will do industrial arts timber. Metalwork just seems to be a bit dirtier to them. It's always greasy and oily. And when you look at these machines, you see that. And that's why a lot of the metalwork that we end up doing is a lot of the cleaner metalwork, the metalcraft tool things, which as I get my year 8s into doing some stuff, I'll show you the progress of some of their projects, because it is fun, and it should be interesting to see how they go with it, how they enjoy it. Yeah, I wanted to make sure these were running, and I've got to find the stuff I need to be able to do this little project that I want to try and do.